Welcome back to the GBGuns Armory, where we're taking a look at stuff of past reviews, giving you some extra thoughts I have on it, as well as opening up the forum, if you will. I kind of want this to be sort of like a Reddit on these things in the comment section, to share anything you have learned or experienced with these things, since this is all stuff that has been past reviewed, so it's been out for a while. Chances are you've had a chance to see or hold one. Today we're talking about the SAR 9C. Now, this is a gun that I had in for a magazine article, and at first I thought, okay, it's just another striker-fired 4-inch barrel, 15-round polymer frame, you know, your standard compact gun that you see everywhere. And then I got to talking to at least the folks that were at SAR USA at the time. One of the struggles I've noticed with this company, at least for me as media in trying to interact with them, is it seems like every 6 months they have a staff changeover and nobody passes notes. So, sorry I can't give you any updates on the newest stuff or the things that get teased. Kind of some of the mystique, but to maybe make you feel a little better about these, I have SAR guns from 8 years ago. They are not labeled SAR USA. What's the difference? Well, SAR is a defense contractor over in Turkey, making all kinds of stuff, up to missiles and things like that. They got into handguns, and previously the handguns were imported by various importers. As we go through this series, you guys will see some of the older ones. Those were your standard, what do you got for me? Okay, I'll take 500 or 5,000. They get to the States, they get sold. Maybe they don't. Then eventually they end up on the Graveyard of Guns, CDNN, or one of those type of websites where things just get cleared out because they're never going to be seen again. The folks at SAR wanted to take handguns in the US market a little more seriously and started SAR USA. That's the importer of this gun, my particular example. And SAR USA should be here to stay. Now, as far as staff changeovers and things being a little weird, I've seen that a lot with importers over the years. It comes down to, I imagine, a communication challenge of intent and of effort. You look at, say, Steyr. Right? Steyr is a famous, well-established, very old, high-quality manufacturer. In Europe, in the US, there was this effort, but then no real effort or weight behind it. Steyr makes great stuff, but no push ever came from it. That means somebody at some point decided, no, we're not going to market, we're not going to advertise. No, we don't need to interact with the public. If they want to buy one, they'll buy one. And what I think happens in those cases eventually is back at real headquarters, somebody says, you know, we're spending a lot of money on these US operations. Why don't we just kill it? And then we see stuff disappear. And then it comes back a few years later and everyone's excited. It's part of the challenge with imports. On to the SAR 9C, and part of what makes this thing surprisingly different. One, it's freaking heavy, and that's because there is significantly more beef in it, more steel, than in your standard I guess, for lack of a better word, Glock type gun. They've got a dual captured recoil spring. If that'll be captured. The steel chassis type setup that's in here, you can see the serial number window on there, even though it's not like a removable chassis. Add some weight to the grip frame, and you have interchangeable side and rear panels on the grip, for a total of 27 different types, because you get 3 for each of the 3 places. And the other bit was, this was actually entered into a competition as a service pistol, and as a result had to do the 20,000 rounds of NATO ammo. And I believe, if I recall correctly, a SAR 9C went up to about 50,000 before they finally had issues. If you didn't know, NATO spec 9mm is 10% higher pressure than American SAMI spec. Guess what's 10% higher than, what else is 10% higher than SAMI spec is plus P. So NATO ammo is effectively plus P ammo. The ergonomics on this thing were nice. This very, very deep undercut of the trigger guard lets me get my whole hand, minus some palm fat, on a compact size gun, which was unique. The extra weight certainly made for softer shooting. And then speaking of extra weight, these base plates, which are an optional thing, are steel, which makes these mags heavy, and you definitely get dropping of drop free at 32 feet per second. That mag wants out of the gun as soon as you push the button, which is kind of nice. The trigger, there's our take-up, spring-loaded. Kind of a mushy creep, brake. And then that creep gets in the way of the reset. It felt to me like polymer on polymer friction, like a little bit of flashing somewhere, or maybe it didn't fit quite right. But that also means it's something that's going to wear in. I'd love to hear from you guys if you own one of these, if your trigger feels that way too. If so, it could be indicative of, I doubt it's a design flaw, but maybe a molding flaw. Or if yours doesn't feel that way, then that's definitely that I've got some flashing in there or something. I never took it all the way apart because I review guns just as they come. And this was a sample, like I said, for the magazine article. Found it to be a good gun, found it to be a comfortable gun. I mean, when you've got 27 different possible grip configurations, there's really no excuse to make something uncomfortable. You do have finger grooves, but they are broad. Some light on there. Sorry, I've only got really light coming from one side. There we go, turn the gun around. I'm learning. Look at that. But yeah, a decent shooter, a little stiff in the spring, as most guns sprung for NATO ammo are. You do need to have a firm wrist on it if you want it to run with most American ammo. That weight, though, like I said, it made for a great range session. Maybe not something I'd want to carry because of that weight. In fact, I think this actually weighs more than my carry gun, which is a bigger gun. There's just a lot of metal in this thing, a lot of parts in it that are beefy, but it's built to be a hardcore duty gun. I haven't seen much news or in the media about these things in a while, aside from every once in a while somebody will ask me about a model that is supposedly out that I had never heard of before, and I go to the website and sometimes I find that there and sometimes I don't. I realize that of course it's an international audience here, so maybe you guys are talking about stuff that's just not in the US. The last time I saw SAR USA at a trade show, they weren't showing anything new. But who knows, the shot is just around the corner, so maybe we'll see something there. As far as trust and faith in this gun, since I know that's always a thing for people with imports, I don't have any reason to not trust it. The only risk might be if you get cut off from a way for Sarcelma's parts to be brought into the US. But considering that Sarcelma's stood up SAR USA, they've invested that money to create that brand and be their own importers here in the US. I'd say chances are pretty good that you can get parts and that warranty things should not be an issue. If you guys know otherwise, please let us know in the comments because that's a big deal. I tend to not break guns. In fact, I was joking with a YouTube buddy of mine who is often criticized for always having a good time with his guns, and we were joking how he and I seem to always make everything run, and yet there are some other channels, particularly big ones, that seem to be able to break everything or have a failure with everything. Lots of reasons that could be. Lots of reasons. I'm not going to get into it. I don't want to discredit or spread rumors about anybody in the gun tuber sphere. But back to the SAR. You know, here's a fun one. I'm curious. I will link to, I believe I've got a web article on this. Might have been just the magazine article that I wrote. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think would be a reasonable price for this. Considering it's not necessarily a clone, it went through NATO testing and all that, it had a lot more seriousness to it than just, hey, let's make a quick cheap gun for the US market. What do you guys think this should be priced at. And then, if you've got the time, look it up and come back and reply to yourself with what you found and whether or not you think that's reasonable. That's something that I've always found entertaining for myself when I learn of something and then try to think, what's okay. Anyways, that's episode 14. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.